right, our guest today was a basketball walk-on who actually made it, unlike me, at the Ohio State University, where he helped lead the Buckeyes to a Final Four in his freshman year. And by helped lead, I mean he kept the team loose by telling jokes and having great energy on the bench, which was my dream that I couldn't fulfill. Not only did he manage to become a school legend, he's also the co-host of the Titus and Tate Podcast from Fox Sports. Mark Titus is here. Welcome, a living legend. All of us potential walk-ons look up to you. You made it. I tried to walk on at the American University. It didn't happen. What was your key to success?
I think you hit the nail on the head. I knew how to tell the right jokes, I guess, at the right time. Also, let's not discount the one rebound I had in that 2007 NCAA tournament. I think that kind of changed the course of our season when I came in against Central Connecticut State in the 116 game and emphatically pulled down a garbage time rebound. I think I think that was the difference. I think Coach Mata went back and looked at the tape and was like, I didn't realize Titus had that in his game, and he kept me around for 3 more years. So I think it was that.
Did you ask for the basketball? Did you want the basketball?
Yeah, I should have. Can you imagine that heat check of like the walk-on going up to the ref and then say tournament? Like, can I have that? That's oh my God.
Oh, that is rich. That is rich. But as we mentioned now, we had Tate Frazier on a couple weeks ago. He was awesome. You are his better half on
Thank you.
On the podcast. I love listening to y'all. And you've had such extensive coverage of conference tournaments and now the NCAA tournament. I'm curious, what do you take away from conference tournaments? Because it seems to not really matter in the seeding.
Yeah, it definitely doesn't matter in the seeding. It also, you can talk yourself in circles as to, I mean, we had a great example of this last season. There were two very obvious conference tournament results in terms of like teams that just got hot for their conference tournaments. And you have Oregon State in the Pac-12. I'm talking about last year, who won their who kind of came out of nowhere to win their conference tournament, getting into the NCAA tournament. And Georgetown did the same in the Big East. And you're going into the NCAA tournament, and you're saying, all right, both of these teams are not that great, but they're hot right now. So I wonder what's going to happen in the NCAA tournament. In Georgetown's case, they got blown out in the first round. And in Oregon State's case, they went to the Elite Eight. So I guess like what I'm saying is I have no idea what they tell us. You can look. I mean, there's the one stat about like teams that don't make their semifinals have never won the national title. So I think that's interesting. That tells me something. Mm-hmm. So I think like a team like Illinois losing to Indiana in the first, that gives me pause. But you see teams that need the rest and they lose early, and like sometimes it helps them out to not have to play 4 games in 4 days or whatever leading into the NCAA tournament. And other teams are hot and they ride it. So like that's the joy of March. It sucks for a guy like me who's supposed to have answers, and you guys have me on your show and you're like, make sense of the madness for us. But for the neutral fan, it's what makes the sport so great, is because you can talk yourself into a million different outcomes looking at this stuff.
Do you use Ken Palm at all? Are you familiar with Ken Palm?
I do.
Yeah.
I use Ken Palm.
Are you familiar with it?
Yeah. I use.
You better be.
Yeah, I use Ken Palm, but it's the same sort of thing. Is like it's almost paralysis by analysis. You look at all these numbers and try to make sense of. The thing that kills me too is like. Even I just said it. I said no team has lost in the semifinals of their conference tournament, and we use that as a data point to say that no. So as we look forward, these things definitely aren't going to happen. Cross these teams off. When you look at like the last few national titles we had Baylor won a national championship. They had never won a national championship. In fact, before they had won the national championship, like the knock on Scott Drew was like he couldn't get it done, and like he never goes to Final Fours. He always has like good teams. He always chokes. The year before, well, there wasn't a tournament the year before, but the champion before that was Tony Bennett at Virginia, who had just lost to a 16 seed, who, like, if you asked anybody on the street who knew Tony Bennett, they would bring up the singer, first of all, probably. But then if you asked them about the coach, they would be like, yeah, that's the guy that chokes in March. And he won a national title, and he won a national title against Texas Tech and beating Auburn in the Final Four. And I guess, like, we're at an era in college basketball where it feels like a lot of firsts are happening. And yet we go into March and we like look at like Ken Palms and we look at patterns and we say like the last 25 national title teams have all had this on Ken Palm and that on Ken Palm and that. And then there always seems to be like one team that, that breaks through and does something. And then instead of going, oh, okay, so maybe these formulas don't really tell us much, we then just go into next year and we're like, okay, so now let's change the formula. And now this is the formula we're going with. So
right. No, absolutely. And you mentioned Baylor. They won for the first time last year, but there's always talk about a defending champion curse, which I just think points out that it's really hard to win twice. Does this fate befall Baylor as now we look at their path to the championship?
Yeah, I think Baylor's problems is their problem is more injuries, I'd say, than having the target on their back. Because I really did love this Baylor team, but Baylor has been an incomplete product all season. We've been waiting to see what their complete team looks like, and unfortunately, I just don't think we're ever going to actually see that. But yeah, it's tough to win back to back. It's very, very tough. I do think there is part of that target on your back mentality, and a lot of the guys, like what's funny is a lot of the guys on Baylor this year weren't even on the team last year, so they just kind of inherit that pressure that comes with being the defending champion. But no, if you're asking me, do I think Baylor will win the national title? I do not, but it has not, like, Baylor's they're obviously a 1 seed. They've had a great season. They're a great team. But I think even Baylor fans are scratching their head about like what this team could have been with LJ Cryer. Looks like he's out for the tournament, and Jonathan Chamwa-Chachua has been out for the year for a little while now, and they've had a bunch of other guys banged up throughout the season. So it's more, for me, this Baylor team, it's more of a testament that they got a 1 seed. That's almost like the impressive part than anything that happens in the tournament run now. So I think they're just kind of playing with house money at this point, certainly as a program. Once you won a national title, I think you get like a 5-year grace period to do anything in the tournament. I think that's how it works.
Well, how early are we talking for them to fall? I know Tate is looking at that 1-8 North Carolina meeting potentially this weekend, then UCLA potentially after that. Like, how early do you think they fall?
Baylor to me is definitely, and again, I say this with the utmost respect to Baylor's program. This has nothing to do with the talent they have on that team, because they are absolutely loaded from a talent perspective. It has to do more with just like they've been piecing together their team. They've been patching it together throughout the entire season. Sure. So I do think they're the most susceptible 1 seed to lose in the first weekend. Now, having said that, North Carolina is I have been forced to watch a lot of North Carolina basketball this year, because my co-host is a proud, maybe not so proud at times, Carolina alum. They are all over the place. Carolina is Carolina, to me, like, they match up well with Baylor in the second round, but it always works this way somehow, that like anytime you start getting excited about an 8 seed that can knock off the 1 seed, the 8 seed blows it against the 9 seed, and Marquette will beat Carolina because Carolina is looking ahead to Baylor. So no, I think Baylor, I would be very, very surprised if Baylor makes it to the Final Four, certainly, which is, as a 1 seed, you usually don't say that about 1 seeds, but I think I would be very surprised. I mean, UCLA in the Sweet 16 or St. Mary's in the Sweet 16, I think the Sweet 16 matchup for Baylor is going to be tough. Baylor's just going to have a tough path the entire way through, but that's nothing new for Baylor, so we'll see.
Yeah.
How about a couple teams that play like incredible defense, like Arkansas or Indiana? What are their chances?
Yeah. I certainly like Arkansas's chances better, but Arkansas's first round match against Vermont is to me like the game to watch in the first round. I think that's going to be and Arkansas fans are killing me for saying that, because anytime you like one team, that means you are saying you don't like the other team. And I really like the Vermont team. I think Vermont is like the absolute perfect team for the NCAA tournament, the perfect double-digit seed. I think like the way they're built, they start 5 seniors. They take care of the ball. They are not super athletic. They're not super big, but when you like are engineering a team to have success against a power conference team in the NCAA tournament, the results you build looks a lot like this Vermont team. But yeah, Arkansas plays great defense. JD Note is, I believe in the combination of great defense and great guard play. And JD Note is a guy that, for Arkansas, that all year they just kind of throw the ball to him and say, we need your help, go get us a bucket, and he'll go do it. So I think Arkansas, certainly more so than Indiana, more so than like LSU is another team that plays great defense and kind of suspect offense. Trying to think. Texas Tech is interesting. I mean, Texas Tech is one of those teams that plays great defense. The offense can look a little rocky. I think they can ride that pretty far in the NCAA tournament this year. But Arkansas would be my pick of those great defensive teams. It's just that first round game. If Arkansas can beat Vermont, they can go far. But Vermont scares me. Vermont really, really does scare me for Arkansas.
Is JD Notte one of your Kemba candidates? And can you explain to our audience what a Kemba candidate has to include?
So the Kemba candidate is that in 2011, Kemba Walker carried. I mean, everyone who watches college basketball remembers that UConn was, I believe they were like the 9th seed in the Big East tournament. They have the most ridiculous Big East tournament run. They then go on to win the NCAA championship, and the way they did it was they played great team defense. And basically, Kemba Walker was like, "I'll take care of the entire offense. You guys don't worry about this. I'll make it. I'll do everything myself." It was one of the most incredible things I've ever seen. And ever since then, I've been obsessed with the formula because 3 years later, UConn kind of did it again with Shabazz Napier this time as their guy who was like, "I'll go score everything and we'll just play defense." So I'm obsessed with that idea of like a team that just plays great team defense. Maybe their offense isn't great, but they have like one guard who you can just give the ball to and say, just please do something for us. And JD Notte is like at the top of my list, I think, of that because Arkansas is a great defensive team. And if you've watched this guy all season, he shot them out of a couple games. There's a couple times where he was feeling himself a little too much. But that's what March is about is like the spotlight gets turned up and guys, sink or swim and you find out who these guys are that can rise to the occasion. And JD Notte is certainly one of those guys. So I really hate Arkansas's draw, though. I really wish they weren't playing Vermont because I like the Vermont team so much.
Yeah.
What about Yale? Finally, I mean, will an Ivy League school ever make it to the Final Four or win it? Or will it just be the closest that they get is a great team using the Princeton offense? And second part of the question, do you think there should be a Revenge of the Nerds movie sequel where a team wins it against a team of football players?
I think here's the move for the Ivy League teams is you gotta, like, we're in this name, image, likeness era, and everyone's talking about how the Kentuckys and Kansases and North Carolinas of the world are going to beat everybody because they're the big basketball programs. I think the move is you get these Ivy League teams. I mean, they're the ones with the $1 billion donors and stuff. You got to get your billionaires at the Ivy Leagues to care about this and get them to set up name, image, likeness deals. And so instead of like offering these high school guys like car dealership situations, you're offering them just like straight cash from like hedge funds and stuff.
Bitcoin.
Set that, yeah. Give them Bitcoin. I think that's the formula. Is Yale going to go to the Final Four? I would say that is highly unlikely. I do not think. I don't love Yale's matchup with Purdue. Purdue's a team that has been up and down all season. So I guess you could catch Purdue on a downswing, but Purdue got upset last year and they brought a lot of those guys back and I don't think Purdue's going to overlook Yale in the first round like they did with North Texas last year. So I don't think it's going to happen, Yannis. I'm sorry to say that.
They need to. Maybe they need. Yeah, I was going to say maybe they need to build a robot player.
Have a robot. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I think the in all seriousness, I mean the college basketball parity it continues to we're seeing more and more like this tournament is going to be insane. This is if you followed the sport all season, like last year Gonzaga and Baylor were head and shoulders better than everybody else, and there was a chance one of them could get upset, but the tournament really wasn't going to start. Like, I don't think I was really going to get that excited about where the madness going on until Gonzaga or Baylor lost. And maybe both, like if both of them lost, I'd been like, oh my God, we have a tournament now. So the fact that they met in the title game, it wasn't a surprise last year to anybody. This year, I mean, if you told me like all the one seeds lost in the first weekend, I would be a little surprised. I wouldn't be stunned, like last year I would have been stunned. This year, That's not the case, and there are obvious flaws to every single one of these teams, and that's what's going to make it fun. But to bring it back to the Ivy League, I think like that's going to continue every step of the way moving forward, and each year. And I don't know, there's a path. The Ivy League could figure it out. Why not? Some of these smaller schools will figure it out. If Loyola Chicago can figure it out, why can't one of these Ivy League schools figure it out?
Yeah, seriously. Speaking of Loyola Chicago, they face your Ohio State Buckeyes in the first meeting, and they're dangerous. But as I've heard you point out on your own podcast, this isn't the team of last year. They've lost talent, but good defense and a great nun and a close ear to God. So what do you think in that first meeting?
Yeah, Sister. I'm more scared about Sister Jean than anyone on the Loyalist team, to be honest with you.
I've heard you call her Sister Meme too. That's kind of shady.
Sister Meme, because we can. So somehow Ohio State. It has been frustrating to watch this Ohio State team. They've been up and down. They do not play great defense. But somewhere along the line, the narrative of the Ohio State season got changed, where it was that we were dealing with injuries and COVID pauses throughout the year. We beat Duke in the non-conference season, and expectations were sky high in Columbus, and then we get hit with like a COVID pause for a few weeks, and we kind of lose our momentum. So it's been up and down, and then now Ohio State has no doubt limped into the NCAA tournament. I will not deny that, but we've been without our two big our big dudes in Zed Key and Kyle Young for like the duration of the end of the season. I think they're both going to be back for this game. And what's frustrating to me is that I have been down on this team in ways that maybe it would be surprising for a guy that is wavy. I'm literally wearing an Ohio State hat in this interview. I very much want Ohio State to be good, and they've bummed me out a lot this year. But the fact that Ohio State is an underdog against a Loyola Chicago team with a first-year head coach in round one is insane to me. When we have an All-American E.J. Liddell, we have a first-round pick in Malachi Branham. I don't know. The disrespect is through the roof, and it's a good position for us to be in. I know a lot of people remember what happened in the tournament last year, which we had guys out for that game too, which no one wants to talk about. That's okay. So I don't take Loyola Chicago lightly, but the fact that Ohio State is being disrespected to this extent, I actually think it works in our favor, and I'm excited about this first round matchup.
But you mentioned all the talent, 2 first-round picks. They have more length, more talent. They should, on paper, win this game. But 5th year for Chris Holtmann, and he's never advanced past the second round. What do you attribute that to? He always has talent.
Olivia, your connection's cutting out. I can't.
It certainly is not.
That wasn't very. I didn't hear what.
Like,
I'll
do you
say
want to
this.
see someone new at the helm? Do you like Chris Holtmann?
In all seriousness, Holt's style of play is Ohio State is we're very fun to watch on the offensive end. What we struggle at is defense. We struggle at closing games. And I think the criticism of Holt would be like this. Those are things that you need in the NCAA tournament, obviously, because on a one and done setting, you get into a situation like the Oral Roberts game last year. Oral Roberts was just red hot, making everything, and Ohio State was we're matching Oral Roberts shot for shot, but at a certain point, as a Buckeye fan, you're like, all right, can we please get one stop? And we just weren't capable of doing that. So I think the problem, like moving forward, to answer your question, no, I don't want anyone else at the helm. I love Chris Holtmann. We just have to tweak the machine. It reminds me of the Tony Bennett problems he was having when he first got to Virginia. He was winning a lot of games. He would get to the NCAA tournament, and he would never really have a plan B. They would play great defense. They never really had when their main A plan fell apart, they never really had a plan B. That's kind of Ohio State right now. We need a plan B. You're putting me in a tough spot, Olivia. You're putting me in a tough spot because
I don't. Just don't speak from your heart.
I think I would love for us to figure it out defensively, because I think like that is kind of the problem, is like every single year
That's definitely the problem.
We try to outscore teams, and it doesn't always work that way in the NCAA tournament. So I don't know if we're going to be able to figure that out with this team this year. I think it's too late for that, but we'll see. I don't know. I'm sweating so much now. You put me on. I was not prepared to answer questions I didn't want to answer.
You knew we were going to ask an Ohio State team. You were 2 seed last year and lost to Oral Roberts. I mean, we're asking it again.
I blocked that out. I've processed. You know how much therapy I had to go to get that out of my system, and now you're bringing it back to the surface.
All right, you predicted that the NCAA would take care of Coach K. They gave Duke a 2 seed. What do you make of that? What do you think's going to happen in that part of the bracket?
When I saw the selection show and I saw Duke as a 2 seed, I about fell out of my chair because like that is absolutely egregious. And Tennessee was Tennessee should have Duke's 2 seed. But then it like clicked that Duke is the 2 seed and Gonzaga's a region, and I think that's kind of perfect. I think that's a good balance to balance it back out.
And they have a tougher path in Tennessee.
Yeah, they do.
I kind of like Tennessee's spot better.
I think being in Gonzaga's region for Duke is tough because obviously Gonzaga is the number 1 overall seed, but that to me the West is that it's Gonzaga has to win a national title. I mean, like that's what everyone's waiting on. I felt like they had to win it last year. They did not, obviously. That is the only way this season is a success for Gonzaga. They could go to the national title game again, lose in quadruple overtime, and it's a failure of a season. And that is harsh, but that's the reality we're living in with Gonzaga basketball. Meanwhile, Duke has to make the Final Four. It's Coach K's final season. That's all we've heard about all season is that this is his farewell tour. He's got Paolo Banchero, who might be a number 1 pick, or will certainly go in the top 5. They're a loaded team. So one of those has to they both can't happen. Gonzaga can't win the national title and Duke go to the Final Four. So I'm absolutely fascinated to see how that plays out. I think a lot of people are excited about the idea of Michigan State knocking off Duke in the second round. I want to caution everybody about that because like this Michigan State team is not built for that really. Like the way Michigan State beat Duke in 2019 was Cassius Winston was awesome and just like ate their point guard alive, Trey Jones. Michigan State's point guard is Tyson Walker. He's not exactly Cassius Winston. We'll put it that way. I love the idea of Michigan State beating Duke. I don't see it this year. I think Duke's making it to the Sweet 16, and then that's when the fun starts. Maybe they're playing at Texas Tech. Maybe they're playing in Alabama. And then they have Gonzaga probably in the Elite Eight. That's when it gets fun and interesting, and that's when America should get excited. But I think Duke makes it to the Sweet 16 at least, and then we see what happens.
On Gonzaga, let me just ask you, like you said, been so close so many times. If they don't win it this year, the only constant has been Mark Few. Do you start looking, if you're Gonzaga, do you start going, hey, we got to change coaches? I mean, we can't get over the hump.
I don't think you do. I think you stick with the guy that turned your cow pasture school into a college basketball powerhouse. I think you stick with that. I think it's best for college basketball. I really do, for Gonzaga to not win it. I think it's like if Gonzaga goes to the title game again this year and they don't win, I think this is great for college basketball because Gonzaga. The moment Gonzaga, I don't think people have really picked up on this. Tate certainly is well aware of this, and we talk about this on our show a lot. But I don't know if the general public has picked up on this. The moment Gonzaga wins a national title, and it might happen this year, they become the new Duke. They are the new Duke in every single way, down to like they're a tiny private school that like can trace all of their success back to like one coach who turned them from nothing into something. The kind of players they recruit, the way they play, the attitude of their fan base, just on down the line, they check a lot of the Duke boxes. And I think the timing of putting Gonzaga and Duke in the same region and Coach K's final season at a time when Gonzaga has to win a national title, I think it's all a little too perfect. And I am cheering for. I have historically loved Gonzaga. Adam Morrison is my favorite college basketball player of all time. I probably cried along with him when he lost to UCLA in 2006. I have loved this Gonzaga rise to national prominence and getting 1 seeds every year and all that. But I also, deep down, don't want Gonzaga to win because the moment Gonzaga starts winning national titles, everybody's going to hate them. Everybody is going to hate Gonzaga.
Good point. As I'm looking at my bracket now, what is the most likely 1/16 upset?
Oh.
We don't know all of them. We're recording this Tuesday. We don't know who all the 1 seeds are playing, but if you had to pull one out of that bag right now.
All right. I believe that Arizona is the best team in the country, even though Gonzaga is the number 1 overall seed. I have thought Arizona's the best team. They're the most fun team for me to watch all season. So this has nothing to do with how good I think Arizona is. But the Wright State Bryant game, which is the 16 play-in game, which I think is on Wednesday. I think that's the Wednesday 16 play-in game. Bryant is a team that if anyone watched the Northeast Conference Championship against Wagner, they're led by this guy named Peter Kiss, who wears a Kiss t-shirt to warm up in. His last name is Kiss. He sticks his tongue out when he makes good plays. He is absolutely electric is the only word you could describe him. And Bryant as a team plays very high-paced basketball. So and Arizona does too. And if Arizona plays Bryant in the 16-1 game, it is going to be the most like up and down basketball game you've ever seen in college. There are going to be a ton of points. Peter Kiss is going to try to score 60. He's probably going to take like 55 shots to do it. I don't actually think Bryant's going to beat Arizona, but I have never been in my entire life, and I mean this genuinely, I've never been more excited to watch a 16-1 game than if Bryant plays Arizona, because I don't necessarily think the upset's going to happen, but I think it's going to be an awesome game to watch. I think it's going to be so fun.
Giannis, take the over. That's what I'm hearing. Take the over in that game. Woo.
It feels like a game that like Peter Kiss would score like 50 points and Bryant as a team would have like 94. And Peter Kiss is like popping his jersey in the crowd and pointing at his family and all that, and sticking his tongue out. And Bryant lost by 34. And he didn't even realize it. Like Arizona kicked their ass and he had no idea, because all he knew is he's like, I scored 50. You guys see that? You know? So
I love it. I love it. I like a little pageantry and showmanship. Nothing wrong with that.
Nothing. Is he the guy you think, the big break? Is there a player or players you think that now that they're on the national stage will have their coming out party? I mean, like Steph and Ja, they were big on their teams, but they were mid-majors. But maybe a guy like Dante DiVincenzo who, has the talent and just has a monster game and then gets drafted because of it.
So the guy, like the small school guy, I don't know about draft, but as far as like stealing America's heart, it kind of happened in the Conference USA tournament. This kid, Jordan Walker, nicknamed Jelly on UAB. Yeah. I think he had a 40-point game against Middle Tennessee in the Conference USA tournament. He kind of single-handedly carried UAB into the tournament, and they go up against Houston in the 12-5 game. Houston is great defensively, and I'm really worried that they're just going to put the clamps on him. But he's a guy that certainly, to answer your question, Giannis, about a guy that kind of comes out of nowhere from a small school. I could see him going nuts, and even if they lose, it's one of those deals where he, scores 30-something points and is trying to will his team to victory. That could be a ton of fun. The serious answer is a guy who has, for people that are like deep into the weeds in college basketball, have followed it all season, know this guy, but the general public probably doesn't. David Roddy at Colorado State is a guy that I absolutely love. He's their big dude in the sense he's not a super tall dude, but he's built like a bowling ball, and he plays like a bowling ball, and he just grabs every single rebound. He's very skilled. I don't even know who I could compare him to that would. I mean, Big guess like he's probably gonna maybe Big Baby, Charles Barkley type comparisons. He has a ton of fun, and he's going up against a Michigan team that's going to draw a lot of eyeballs because Michigan just kind of always does. They're a team that, with Juwan Howard as the coach especially, is I think a lot of people are going to tune in. That is the very first game on Thursday. Is going to be Michigan versus Colorado State, and I think the matchup of David Roddy and Hunter Dickinson is going to be fascinating because Hunter Dickinson has never guarded a guy like David Roddy. David Roddy has never guarded a guy like Hunter Dickinson. It is going to be awesome to watch those guys go up against each other. And that's my answer. I think David, because I like Colorado State to pull the upset, even though Michigan's playing in Indy and kind of got a favorable draw in that regard. I say Colorado State pulling the upset. They're the 6 seed, Michigan's the 11, but I think Michigan's actually favored in the game. So there you go. That's my answer. David Roddy.
I like it.
If you don't know the name, you'll know it by Thursday afternoon. Yeah.
If you don't know, now you know.
There you go.
Titus. We haven't talked a lot about the Midwest region, actually. And a couple days ago when the bracket first came out, you said, now it's wide open. You've had 2 days to kind of digest it. What do you make of the Midwest now?
The Midwest. So what makes the Midwest interesting to me is Kansas is the 1 seed, right? So they... Kansas is the 1 seed every year, and it's hard, I guess, if you're a casual fan to kind of suss out the differences between Kansas teams. This Kansas team, what makes the Kansas teams great historically has been their point guard play. This Kansas team just frankly doesn't really have a point guard. They just kind of like whoever gets the rebound seems to bring the ball up the floor unless it's one of their big dudes. David McCormick is their center, who traditionally, again, most Kansas teams play through their center. They don't really do that with McCormick. They are led by Ochai Agbaji, who plays on the wing. Christian Brown plays on the wing. Jalen Wilson's one of their better players. He plays on the wing. They are playing a completely different style than what we've seen from Bill Self through the years. They don't play great defense, and that gives me a lot of question marks about Kansas. Meanwhile, Auburn has been great for most of the season, but they're mostly just great at home. And if you really pay attention to Auburn, the times we've been really high on Auburn, and the big wins they pulled out are usually at home, and they haven't been as great on the road. So I think that's what makes that region so interesting is at the top you have two teams that are very obviously flawed to me, and Wisconsin has kind of limped into they're the 3 seed. They've kind of limped into the NCAA tournament. Johnny Davis's health has been called into question. So I ultimately went with this. I went with Iowa beating Kansas in the Sweet 16.
Oh,
I like Iowa pulling the upset because Keegan Murray is playing out of his mind. This Iowa team is they haven't been great defensively all year, but they've kind of figured it out, and they're a completely different team to me when I watch them right now than I did throughout the year. And I like Auburn to play Iowa in the Elite Eight still. I still think Auburn is a team. They're so good defensively, and Jabari Smith is going to be the number 1 pick in the NBA draft, I think. So I ultimately went with Auburn over Iowa to answer your question. That's where I landed on. I don't feel great about it because, as I said, all of these teams have obvious flaws, and I think that's going to be the most fun. If I'm picking one region where chaos happens, I would probably circle the Midwest as far as I don't know, a South Dakota State going on a run as a 13 seed, or Miami or USC, maybe they beat Auburn in the second round and they kind of go to the Elite Eight. I don't know. But the Midwest to me was where I'm forecasting the most chaos for sure.
That's definitely where I have the most question marks on my bracket. USC, Miami, that's a coin flip to me. I don't know. Some of these, even Providence, South Dakota State, I heard you guys talking about that you were a little stumped on, right? Iowa, Richmond.
Yeah, South Dakota State's the best 3-point shooting team in the country. So that could go either way, if they're shooting like they have been all year, then that's great for an upset. But then, sometimes these teams that are great 3-point shooting teams, they get to the NCAA tournament, they miss their first 5. And then they start getting nervous, and they're like, "What's happened? Why aren't our shots going down?" So, no, South Dakota State. If South Dakota State goes to the Sweet 16, I'm not going to be surprised. Wow. I won't be surprised by anything in the Midwest, honestly.
Yeah, it's a mess over there.
Two-part question: are there any walk-ons in the tournament who are making noise? Second part of the question: is Jeff Hornacek the best walk-on of all time?
Okay, so I got to be honest that I don't know of any walk-ons that that's not true. I'm gonna shout out my guy Steven Izzo, Tom Izzo's son, who's a walk-on at Michigan State, who loves our show. I'll text with him every so often about stuff, and he's holding down the Club Trillion brand. How many years is it since I graduated? 12 years after I 12. Boy, oof. That's tough to say out loud. So I'll shout him out. Steven Izzo, he got into a game late in the season and got a steal. And then I forget what the highlight was, but it was so funny. Michigan State put it on their Instagram, and I was howling because he checks in the game, and walk-ons are supposed to just dribble the clock out. That's kind of how I became famous. Is I bragged about how good I was at just dribbling the clock out. And Steven gets in the game and makes a steal and then pushes the ball and is trying to lead the break, and somehow it gets knocked out of bounds, and he goes crazy and he's getting the crowd pumped up, and the crowd's going crazy, and you can see his dad on the sideline with his arms crossed just shaking his head son of a bitch. We talked about this, son, please don't do this. So I'll shout him out. And then to answer your other question, I want to say Scottie Pippen was a walk-on at one point. I think he's been the answer. I'd have to double check that, but I want to say someone once brought that up to me, that Scottie Pippen started his career as a walk-on at Central Arkansas. Oh. And when I learned that, I was he has to be. He has to be. It's hard to top Scottie Pippen as an answer, So
I didn't know that. Yeah, that's for sure. Otherwise, I think Hornacek, right? Who? Yeah.
Yeah, I would say, yeah. There have been a handful of good ones. I don't remember. I don't know if there's any other NBA Hall of Famers like Scottie Pippen, though. That's gonna be tough to beat.
Wow,
I was close.
Wow,
I wonder how many NCAA tournaments rebounds Scottie Pippen had, though. Did he have one against Central Connecticut State?
We gotta check.
I feel like he didn't grow till his senior year or his first year in Chicago, and he sprouted up 8 inches.
Yeah.
So he was a late
It's
bloomer.
sad. The only reason I think a lot of people know anything about that story is from the Jordan documentary. Like they briefly touch on that story, but
I think Scotty's not too happy about that. I would imagine.
Yeah.
Okay, Mark, let's get to the meat before we want to play a little game with you. But can you give us your Final Four and a winner as it stands on Tuesday, March 15th?
Yeah, so my Final Four, I went a little chalk. People don't like it when I go chalk, but I'm sorry to say the hater they don't like it because the haters want nothing more than a college basketball guy like me to give them some ammo. And when you take a big swing, they want to see me step into the batter's box and take a big swing and fall on my ass when I don't make contact. That's really what they want. And unfortunately, I'm hitting for singles. I'm hitting for doubles. I'm just trying to move the runners along the bases here.
Nothing wrong with
that.
So
my Final Four is Gonzaga and Arizona were the one seeds I liked. I had Arizona beating Ohio State in 4 overtimes in the Elite Eight on a very controversial call that will lead to me picketing outside the NCAA offices. So that's what I have. I had that written in my bracket, actually. I wrote a big, long paragraph.
And you're warning people, too. You're warning them.
I have Gonzaga and Arizona, and then I like Kentucky out of the East. Kentucky is a team that I have loved for the better part of this season. And then I said earlier I like Auburn out of the Midwest. And then I have Kentucky winning it all over Arizona. And as I said, Kentucky, I like Kentucky because Kentucky has Kentucky can beat you in 1,000 different ways. Kentucky's a team that if the game is in the 50s, I trust that they can win 57-51. I trust that they can win 110-106. They are built for a lot of different scenarios. They went into Allen Fieldhouse and absolutely destroyed Kansas in an up and down game. They've played in some meat grinder games in the SEC. I thought the SEC was the best conference all season, and Kentucky is really the one SEC team. They didn't win the league, but they were the one team that could go on the road and win, because it felt like a lot of these SEC teams could win at home but couldn't win on the road. And Kentucky won on the road. So with Oscar Tshiebwe, who's going to win National Player of the Year too, as their anchor, I know that every single Kentucky game they're going to get defense. They're going to grab every rebound. They have a very high floor. A lot of people, when they fill out their brackets, they get excited about the ceilings, like how good can teams be. I know that Kentucky's floor is a certain. I feel like Kentucky has one of the higher floors in college basketball, that they're not gonna lay a stinker out there. So they're gonna give themselves a chance every single game, and I trust that they're gonna be in every game. And for that reason, I picked them to win the national championship. So that's it. And also my dad's an Indiana alum, so I probably just subconsciously picked Kentucky just to get under my dad's skin. I think it's that too. He hates Kentucky.
I like how you don't say a word about Kentucky this whole show, and then you just drop the bomb that they're winning it all.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
So didn't Tennessee beat Kentucky twice this season?
No. Kentucky blew out Tennessee in Kentucky blew out Tennessee at home. In the regular season, yeah. But then Tennessee did beat Kentucky, because they beat him in the SEC tournament. You're right. Yeah, they did beat Kentucky in the SEC tournament. I'm sorry. They did, but Kentucky doesn't have to beat Tennessee again to win the national championship necessarily.
Clean slate.
I don't know.
Clean slate.
We'll see. What
do you make of that St. Mary's victory over Gonzaga? Was that the blueprint to beat them? And do you see a team doing that, just pounding them inside? Because their big men are good, but they're light in the ass.
Yeah.
And can you pound them?
Light in the ass. Yeah, I mean that is this Gonzaga team isn't as good as they were last year. That's for sure. And that gives me pause, because last year's team didn't win the national title. They came up short, but also they kind of ran into an all-time great team in Baylor. So that kind of, I guess, is the formula. I mean, you certainly. You're better served trying to slow Gonzaga down than trying to match their pace and match the skill set that those guys have, which is some of the mistakes that teams get into, is thinking we can run with Gonzaga. But Baylor did it. Baylor in the national title game last year was like, our guys are better than yours, and we're going to go out and prove it, and they did. But this is a different Gonzaga team, and I think you're right, Giannis. That St. Mary's did kind of show the blueprint. The difference is, that is St. Mary's identity. That's been their identity for a long time. They're very familiar with Gonzaga. They're conference rivals. They're like the one team that's been able in the West Coast Conference that's consistently been able to beat Gonzaga. So I think for a team to like in an NCAA tournament setting where you look up and you have 2 days to prepare for Gonzaga, I think saying, hey, we should take that blueprint that St. Mary's has built over 20 years and try to implement it into our program over the course of 2 days. I don't know if that's going to be the recipe for success. But yeah, I mean, if there is a team like say a Texas Tech and if Texas Tech makes it to the Elite Eight and they play Gonzaga, Texas Tech is a team that has a lot of physicality, a lot of big bodies they can throw at Gonzaga, and they're certainly gonna provide like a St. Mary's type feel to that game. So if you're someone who's filling out your bracket and you like Texas Tech to beat Gonzaga, I'm not going to talk you out of that. I have Gonzaga going to the Final Four, but if you think Texas Tech can beat Gonzaga, that certainly makes a lot of sense. And if they did, it wouldn't be a fluke. I don't think. I think I could see Texas Tech just kind of handing it to Gonzaga, to be honest with you.
Hot tip.
There you go.
I like it. Well, Mark, we've taken up a lot of your time. Thanks so much for sharing all of your insight with us. You're on every show, it seems like, this time of year, but you can follow Mark Titus on Twitter at Club Trillion, and of course, listen to the Titus and Tate podcast. I also like watching it on YouTube. I've been doing that the last couple of days.
Oh, really? Wow, thank you.
Yeah, I'm one of your viewers.
One. There are dozens of you, I think, out there.
No, you guys actually have a huge YouTube following.
I am going on a lot of shows, so I implore everybody to please don't follow me on any other shows, because like you'll quickly learn that every time I go on a show, I just kind of contradict myself, and I'm throwing a lot of darts at the board, and I'm hoping somewhere along the line I hit one, and then I'm just gonna clip it and spam the hell out of it and be like, I totally called this, you guys. I totally called this.
Yeah, do you have a different bracket for every show you go on? Yeah. Bring it with you.
I'm going on the next show I do. I'm saying Kentucky's losing in the second round of Murray State.
All right,
That's
Mark,
what makes this time of year so much fun.
Yeah. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
You're the best, man.